My name is Jiles Smith, and welcome to Our Community. So what's your history in law enforcement?
I started with this department in 1985. This was my first law enforcement job, and I had just turned 21 when I started the academy. I've had 17 different assignments in my 28 years of law enforcement with the San Bernardino County. And I've assigned to Needles twice, Victorville 3 times, Hesperia when it was newly incorporated as a city, as well as 2 of the big jails, the academy, and some administrative assignments at headquarters.
You missed our Apple Valley piece because that's when I met you.
That's true. I was the captain in the Apple Valley Station for a little over 4 years, and that's the community I grew up in. So it's pretty incredible to get the opportunity to be the police chief in the community that you grew up in.
So what did you grow up in? Tell the people about that.
My family moved to Apple Valley in 1967, and so I spent the majority of my young life growing up in Apple Valley. Went all through Apple Valley schools, to Victor Valley College after I graduated high school, and then ultimately hired on with the department in 1985.
Outstanding. So what are your 3 highest priorities as sheriff?
Well, we've been faced with some significant budget challenges over the last number of years. And the number 1 priority for me is making sure that we have a sustainable and stable budget for years to come. We've made some great progress with that. We're looking at building a budget that will replace our fixed assets, the large ticket items, if you will. Helicopters, stuff like that needs to be replaced on a regular basis. We know when it needs to be replaced. So we need to have a budget so that when it comes time to replace those items, the money's there, we get the authorization from the Board of Supervisors to replace it, and we move on. Historically, we've had to worry about trying to find one-time money, asset seizure money to buy big fixed items, whatever it might be. But there needs to be a budget in place, and those folks that run businesses do the same thing. They know when they're going to have to replace their big equipment, and they build a budget for it. And we need to run this department more like a business and have that money set aside, because it's no surprise when that stuff needs to be replaced.
Right.
So we ought to build the budget to replace those items when we need to.
Right.
So the budget sustainability and overall stability is a top priority. In addition, we're all hearing about and dealing with the result of the AB 109, or the prison realignment. And just as a point of reference, we in this county historically sent 400 to 425 inmates a month to the state prison system. This was prior to October of 11 when AB 109 came into place. Well, now, because of realignment, we only send about 80 to 85 a month. Well, our jails were full in October of 11, meaning we had 6,000 plus or minus inmates in custody at any given day. Now we're keeping an additional 300 plus inmates in custody, and that's just causing us to release more inmates than we ever have in the past. We're putting people back out on the street, serving a minimal amount of time on their sentences. So that's a significant issue for us as well. And then, as we have seen through the change in retirement benefits in 3 at 50, we've seen some folks in the senior leadership and management capacities within this department, as well as others, leaving because it's retirement time.
Right.
We have an obligation to develop our people, to make sure that we have the right people that are prepared with the right experience to lead this department into the future. So we're making a real strong effort on trying to develop our folks and making sure that we have a succession plan that will carry us for years to come.
Well, speaking about the senior leaders, let's talk about them for a second. Can you talk about any of your senior leaders you have now?
We have a very talented group of individuals coming up through the organization. We've been running the department with 4 instead of 6 deputy chiefs. We've always had the executive officer who helps out with our building projects with AB 109. We're adding some jail bed capacity in Adelanto. We're updating the crime lab, aviation, doing some things that really needed to be done for quite a while. But we've been running with 2 chiefs short for the last almost year now, trying to save enough money so that we can add more deputy sheriffs to the street. But with that, you have to worry about developing your people at the lower levels to make sure that they have both the training and experience so they can continue moving up through the ranks, making sure that we have people ready to take over this organization. We have 2 great assistant sheriffs at this point, we have 4 great deputy chiefs, and we have 26 captains that are very squared away with various levels of experience, but they're progressing very, very well, and I am not concerned about the future of the organization at all.
Outstanding, outstanding. Another question that some of the people wanted me to ask you, are the gang sweeps working? Is it effective?
I believe they are effective. And you know, we still participate in the SMASH program, which is a regional program where the police departments and you know, out of the 24 cities in the county of San Bernardino, 14 of them contract for law enforcement services with us, and the other 10 have municipal police departments. So members of the 14 contract cities as well as the police department members all come together, and we move throughout the county to different cities, and we just impact the community, look for gang members, try to identify them, those that have warrants or get in trouble, put them in jail. Now the downside of that is that we have a significant presence in that community for that night, and we continue to move throughout the county. But a lot of those folks that we put in custody for whatever their violation is, because of the jail crowding, may not stay in jail as long as they did historically. So it does have an impact. There are some consequences for their behavior, but the amount of time they get in jail certainly isn't what it used to be, and in most cases isn't long enough.
Well, speaking of that, I know we've worked together in the PAL program in Apple Valley.
We have.
Can you tell me about some more programs like that or some other PAL programs in the county that you've been affiliated with?
I'd be happy to. There are 3 PAL programs, Police Activity League programs, in the High Desert. One in Victorville, one in Hesperia, and one in Apple Valley. They all vary just slightly. Hesperia just offers boxing, and it's focused primarily on the Sheriff's Department. In Victorville, they offer boxing as well, but the Fire Department, County Fire, is partnered up with the Sheriff's Station, the Victorville Police Department, and they work with the kids, try to give them positive role models, exercise, teach them boxing skills. They've had some great successes. The Apple Valley program is a little bit bigger than that. Not only do they have boxing, but they also have after-school programs, mentoring. There's a place for the kids to go when they get out of school. They can show up at this community center in Apple Valley and spend some time while they're waiting for mom and dad to get home. In the valley here, we do not have any PAL programs yet. But we're partnered up in Highland with the Boys and Girls Club. Great program. They do some boxing there. Then we also have juvenile intervention programs, also referred to as JIP, where we identify some at-risk youth that need to have a significant experience to maybe help change what they're doing. But we also bring their parents in, and we spend the day working with their parents and teaching them parenting skills while their young ones are visiting or touring the Central Detention Center right behind us here. They go to the coroner's office and get exposed to what may happen to them if they continue down the path that they're headed. Right. But we give the parents some skills too, so at the end of the day, the 2 come back together, and hopefully there's some great success out of that.
I'm sure it will be, because again, we worked at PAL together, and there was some great synergies built there as well.
Are these real?
The best quality.
You mean they're fake?
Only a few dollars.
Only a few dollars.
Only a few dollars. Only a few dollars.
Only a few dollars.
It's not only a few dollars. Counterfeit goods take away jobs, and many are tied to violence and crimes, including child labor, drugs, and gangs. You have the power to stop it. Know the real cost. Don't buy counterfeits.
Let me tell you who to blame. Blame the boy lying at your feet, his body oozing life through the hole in his stomach where the bullet tore him apart. Blame him for challenging you, for not looking away and for not backing down when you pulled out the gun. Blame your mother for bringing you into this world when she was but a kid herself and for dragging you up, not bringing you up. Blame society for not giving you hope. Blame your father for not being there, the man who looked after himself instead of looking after you. Blame the gun in your hand for making you a target, for making you more likely to be picked on. Blame the dead boy, blame your mother, blame society, blame your father, blame the gun, blame anyone but yourself for not being strong enough to put down the gun, to break the cycle.
Welcome back to Our Community, brought to you by the CYAP. I understand you handle the coroner's office. Explain how that works, because that just seems, Our Community, I'm sure we watch CSI and the rest of it. How does that work?
Well, we have a number of divisions within the Sheriff's Department, including scientific investigations, which is the crime lab. We do that. Mm-hmm. We also do the coroner's office, and historically, counties had independently elected coroners. And they had a whole coroner's division, right, investigators as well as pathologists and a morgue. Mm-hmm. Well, as time went on, it seemed to be more cost-effective to merge coroner's offices with the sheriff's office. Not every county in the state does that, but the majority do. So now the coroner's office is underneath the sheriff's office under our umbrella. Right. We have a captain that runs that division. We have coroner investigators that respond to death investigations.
Any other divisions that you can talk about? Different sections that you are under, that are under you?
Sure. We have a homicide division, and they respond to all of the homicides in the incorporated cities that we contract with, as well as in the unincorporated area. We also do officer-involved shooting investigations for a couple of the other cities that work with us, and we provide that service for them as well. Mm-hmm. We have an aviation division. We have helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. That's part of our responsibility as well. And then, obviously, our huge division under the Sheriff's Department, and one of our primary responsibilities is corrections. Right. And we have currently just about 6,000 jail beds, mm-hmm, and we're in the process of expanding the Atlanta Detention Center with an additional 1,392 beds. We're funding that through the AB 900 grant program. Right. Sheriff Penrod applied for that grant years ago, and we were successful in getting a $100 million grant award from the state of California to expand that facility. Right. It will be state-of-the-art and provide an opportunity for us to house inmates in the desert that we haven't been able to house in the past. Right. Those that are going to court in the desert, so we're not moving them back and forth from Rancho Cucamonga. Right. And enhance and improve our medical services offered at that facility. And the key part to that for us in the high desert area is that the deputy sheriff today arrests somebody and they have some type of medical condition. The deputy is forced to transport them to the Rancho Cucamonga facility, West Valley Detention Center, because that's where our medical staff is. Once we open up the Atlanta expansion in February of next year, we'll have medical staff there that's present that will be able to handle those medical conditions. Therefore, our deputy sheriffs can stay on the street in the high desert area where they need to be and not make that sometimes very long trip to Rancho, depending on traffic and time of day and holidays and that type of thing. Keep the deputies in the desert where they belong.
I believe your department's finest hour was the Christopher Dorner situation, and yours as well. And I don't mean that to be cavalier about the sad things that went on, but I believe as a citizen, we felt very comfortable, very protected. You guys communicated outstanding, especially you. We understood what was going on. We didn't have to overreact. And I want to commend you for that to start off with. But can you give us a little bit more insight on those difficult times?
Yes. And it was a very sad time for our organization. But I will tell you, and I've said this everywhere, that the men and women of this organization performed incredibly during those days. And we were faced with a significant challenge. We have a guy that has been killing police officers and targeting police officers throughout Southern California. For whatever reason, he ends up in our county in Big Bear. One of the largest manhunts in this county's history occurred while we were looking for him, both in the forest area, in forestry cabins, as well as vacation homes, and residents that people currently live in. We were looking everywhere on that mountain trying to find him. And we really, at that point, had no idea where he was or where he would end up. And ultimately, it was discovered he was just across the street in a condo complex from the command post that we had set up at the golf course. Our men and women performed through significant weather conditions. The snow that fell on Friday, February 8th was incredible. They continued searching, battling those elements, because they were determined to do everything in their power to try to stop this guy. And then ultimately, on the 12th of February, he made a run for it and ended up at a cabin down in the Angeles Oaks area. And he ambushed our deputy sheriffs that were there in that area looking for him. And ultimately, one significantly injured deputy sheriff, and unfortunately, one lost his life in that gun battle. Our folks responded, set up a perimeter, and a significant gun battle ensued. We tried to work every way we could to get him to come out and give up peacefully. His decision was not to do that. His decision was to stay inside that cabin, continue to shoot at us. You saw green smoke coming out of that cabin. He was deploying that smoke. He, I believe, felt we were going to come in and try to get him out of that cabin. That smoke was a smoke screen to keep our folks from being able to see him if they chose to enter that cabin. And ultimately, he took his own life, and the cabin caught fire. We tried everything we could to get him out of that cabin. He chose and made a conscious decision not to come out. Right. But at the end of the day, the men and women of this organization came together and worked like you wouldn't see in a lot of places throughout this country. These folks performed incredibly well, did everything they could in their power to stop this threat, and ultimately the cost we paid was way too high, but the threat was stopped.
Right. And again, your people need to be commended for their courage under fire and their tenacity. They did a great job for our people that day, and our prayers constantly go out to those who got injured and unfortunately passed away during that time.
The one good positive note to that is Deputy Collins, who was significantly injured, is back to work in a modified duty capacity. I just spoke to him a little while ago, and he's got another doctor's appointment in a couple weeks and may be cleared to come back full duty.
Outstanding, outstanding. So what else is the department doing to reduce crime?
Well, as I indicated earlier, we have faced some significant challenges as a result of realignment of these prison inmates and ultimately these inmates that we're releasing early. You know, we have had a history throughout the entire state of just basically warehousing inmates.
Yes.
Well, we've offered some programs, and we have some great things going on at our Glen Helen facility through the Inroads program. Wonderful stuff that we're doing out there. But we're not touching a large percentage of the population, just a small percentage. So because those inmates are getting released early, we're seeing crime increase in a variety of places throughout the county. Now, in a vacuum, it makes sense that the folks we're releasing early, which are typically burglars, auto thieves, that type of thing,
right,
you're seeing some of those crimes increase in various parts of the county. If you look at it in a vacuum, you could deduct that those crimes are going up because the people we're releasing out of custody.
Right.
Now, unless we catch those people that are responsible for that burglary or that theft of a car, we can't prove that in fact it is a person that we released early. However, there are some studies going on, and I think it's still too early to tell, but it very well may be connected in one way or another.
Right.
So that's a challenge for us as crime goes up in a variety of different areas. Now, some of the things that we do help control crime, whether it be the sweeps, proactive patrol, staffing levels, and we've struggled with staffing levels specifically in the county area, right, and in some of the contract cities because of the budget cuts that they've gone through. But the budgets are improving, and there's some of our contract cities that are starting to add staffing again, and that will make a significant difference. We're in the process of adding additional deputy sheriffs to the county areas as well. We've added 2 different deputies to the Victor Valley Station, 1 to Fontana, 1 to Central, and we're making some progress in that regard, but we're still dealing with a tight budget as well. And as things improve, we'll continue to add staffing to those areas, and that will make a significant difference also. But one of the biggest things for us is number one, using our volunteers. We have COPs and volunteers throughout the department, over 2,000 volunteers in this county that come to work and help us do our job, and they don't ask for anything except a simple thank you. We certainly couldn't do what we do without their help. They drive around and they're our eyes and ears as well. But the most important thing for us is the citizens of the county. If you see something suspicious, if you see something that just makes you go, you might want to call us and report that, and we'll get a deputy sheriff to come out and look into that. Because that is a significant thing for us. We can't be everywhere, but we certainly can respond to those calls of suspicious activity.
That reminded me of something you said about the gun buyback program that I saw you at, and we did a little show about. Can you talk how successful that was? Top of your head, do you remember all that? It's a few months ago. So
yes, it was very successful, and it was the first time that we've ever done one county-wide in this county. The police departments participated, all of the sheriff's stations participated, and we had 6 different locations throughout the county, all operating at the same time. The response was overwhelming. And although some people will suggest that we're taking guns away from people,
right,
and that we're violating the Second Amendment, all the people that turned in guns did it voluntarily.
right,
And I spoke to a large number of them that came through the line, not just in Victorville,
right,
but also in San Bernardino and in Redlands.
right.
They thanked us for doing a program like that because there were a lot of folks that were older,
Yeah.
maybe a woman who had lost her husband, and he had had a couple of guns. They had no idea what to do with those guns, and they were really worried that someone would break into their house, steal the guns, and they would be used by somebody to kill somebody, hurt somebody, and they didn't have any information as to what they could do with those guns. Now, certainly they could have taken some of them to the gun store and sold them for whatever they were given.
Yeah.
But in this case, there were no questions asked. They had the opportunity to turn the gun in,
Right.
get a gift card. We took care of all the paperwork. We destroyed the guns. And it was a way for these people to get rid of the guns that made them feel better, and they were no longer worried about them ending up in the wrong hands.
Right.
So, although I'm very supportive of the Second Amendment, we've issued more CCWs in the first 6 months of this year than we did the entire year last year. I believe that if somebody wants a CCW and they can pass the background, they have the right to have one, and we are issuing them as fast as we can. We've added additional staff to keep up with the workload. So I'm very supportive of the Second Amendment. I think if anybody wants to own a gun, they absolutely have the legal right to do so. But on the other hand, those people that I talked to at the gun buyback program that were actually turning in their guns because they didn't know what else to do with them,
Right.
they were thankful that we offered that program, and the response was absolutely overwhelming.
Right.
Now, will we do one every year? Probably not. I don't think the response will be there. Will we do one in the future? We may. It just depends on what the interest is of the police chiefs and of the community.
Right. I will say I was there with you. That's exactly what I understood as well. People were volunteering. Please take this. I didn't know what to do with it. They felt uneasy just to drive around with it, to walk up to a station, which you shouldn't do, and just say I have this weapon. Last question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Well, this is a huge organization, 3,400 employees. And the thing that I worry about the most is the health and safety of each one of our employees. And we did have a sad day in February, and we have officers, professional staff, employees that get sick, they get injured, their family gets sick or injured, and that's what worries me. They're out working 24 hours a day, facing folks that are probably more violent than they've ever been in history. When I was on patrol, we had some folks that carried guns, and we had some people that were violent and certainly didn't want to go to jail and that type of thing. But today, with the prison realignment and fewer people in prison, there's some folks that still need to be in prison that are no longer there. Some folks that need to be in jail that are no longer there. And the violence on the streets, as well as in our correctional facilities, has gone up significantly. So what worries me the most is the phone call that one of our deputy sheriffs or one of our professional staff has either been injured or killed, and I worry about that all the time.
Is there anything else you want to add?
This is a great organization, and I've worked in this organization for 28 years, and it's absolutely my honor to be in this position, and I look forward to doing it for years to come.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Jiles.
Not only does texting while driving significantly reduce your reaction time, but you are also 10% more likely to leave your lane. This commercial was 30 seconds. That's all it takes to avoid a senseless tragedy.